What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Renegade Animation on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host for this evening. Joining me, as always, is the animation guru himself, Cameron.
Howdy, y'all.
And today we have a light in content, but things will get heavy in discussion episode. We've got a little bit of news, a few trailers, a new Spark short from Pixar. Plus, we've got reviews for Rick and Morty Season 5, The Owl House Season 2A, and we're finally taking another stop on the Ghibli journey with 2011's From Up on Poppy Hill. But first, Cameron, we've got some trailers to discuss. So what do you got?
Well, first off, we are going to talk about the upcoming TV series coming to Netflix in October called A Tale Dark and Grim. It's a different take on the Brothers Grimm fairy tales. Here is the synopsis. Based on the best-selling book series by Adam Gidwitz, A Tale Dark and Grim follows Hansel and Gretel as they run away from home to find better parents, or at least ones who won't chop off their heads. As Hansel and Gretel leave their own story and venture through the classic Grimm fairy tales, unexpected narrators guide us through their encounters with witches, warlocks, dragons, and even the devil himself. As the siblings roam a forest brimming with menacing foes, they learn the true story behind the famous tales, as well as how to take charge of their destinies and create their own happily ever after. Because once upon a time, fairy tales were awesome. It will include the voices of Rainy Rodriguez from Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous, Andre Robinson from The Loud House, Scott Adsit from Big Hero 6, the series, Ron Funches, Erica Rhodes, Adam Lambert, Eric Bauza, Tom Hollander, Missy Pyle, and Nicole Byer. It looks cute. I think it looks interesting.
Yeah, honestly, what sold it for me was Ron Funches as one of the birds. I don't know why, but anytime he's in a show, yes, even Hoops, he just brings a very unique energy to whatever he's involved with. Even like the premise of this, it gave me a little bit of the Willoughbys vibe with the two kids looking for better parents.
Yeah, I'd rather not have parents that want to chop off my heads. So
I would rather keep my head.
Yeah. Same. The CGI looks pretty solid. It's not the typical DreamWorks Netflix series look. It has a bit more of a cartoonish look to everything. At first, I thought this was the same studio that makes those CGI stop motion specials, because the Hansel looks like a character from those, and it's not. But one of the people behind this show is Simon Otto, who helped out with Troll Hunters, Tales of Arcadia, and was the head character animator on the DreamWorks' How to Train Your Dragon trilogy. And there's it looks fun, and that's all I can really ask for a show. And I'm a little worried that the crows might overstay their welcome. That was one of the responses I first saw when I posted the trailer. We'll have to see how it balances humor and horror.
Yeah, I could see the crows being an issue in that regard, but just generally speaking, I do think we need more animated horror because, these are like two of some of my favorite things combined. And I think animation is the best way to introduce a younger audience to the wonderful world of horror.
Yeah, I can see that. No, it looks good, and it's not made by DreamWorks, so not that that's a bad thing. It's just, just to be clear, it just has people who worked on a couple of DreamWorks' TV shows and films worked on this project. It's animated by Jam-Filled Entertainment, and it comes out October 8th. We'll just have to see how it unfolds.
Nice.
Next up, we finally got a trailer for the 3-part TV event series, Aquaman King of Atlantis, for HBO Max. Well, it looks cute. I think it looks fun. I know a lot of the people are already hating it because it looks like Thundercats Roar, and I'm sure the same character designer, and I'm betting some of the team that made Thundercats Roar is
Um,
behind this.
Actually, yes, that's exactly correct. Victor Courtwright, who developed Thundercats Roar, is serving as the showrunner alongside Marley Halpern Grazer, who did Batman versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So if it looks at all like Thundercats Roar, it's because you basically have the same team.
And that's fine with me. I did not hate that show. I think too many people hated on it, even though there's like 90 to 100 plus episodes of the original Thundercats show that you can easily watch. It's not like they're gone from time. And it's just disappointing that I didn't even need to know or look up that people were already harassing the team for making this, even though this is why I like DC's animated stuff. They are willing to earnestly go into weird and goofy directions with superheroes because superheroes are inherently goofy at points.
And since this is being produced by James Wan, who James Wan has done a lot to revitalize the character of Aquaman. And I just love the way this, like, it's not a long trailer, it's only like 40 seconds, but it just kind of feels like that same gonzo energy that the movie had.
And isn't that why people liked Aquaman? Because it was just so absurd and
Exactly.
ridiculous. I mean, with that, of course, my favorite gag is the one that they kind of focus on, it with the throne and such. Sometimes, like accessibility and comfort is more important than visual aesthetic because that throne did not look comfortable.
No.
No, it's just funny. It's like, can I sit in a different throne? No. And yeah, we got a good voice cast as well with Cooper Andrews, Gillian Jacobs, Thomas Lennon, and Dana Snyder as the Ocean Master. I instantly picked up his voice when you see the Ocean Master just kind of barge in.
I gotta say, Dana Snyder is slowly creeping up on the throne for MVP of the year.
He's everywhere. He's in Jellystone. He's going to be in that Ghost and Molly McGee show. He's in this. I'm happy to see him. He's always been a delightful voice to hear, especially like for stuff like Chowder. He's great in that show. And even though it's always a toss up between him and Tom Kenny, I liked his take on Plastic Man. I think he caught the boastful heroicness of the character. Kind of like a little bit of Booster Gold in a way, but with its own flair. Well, and yeah, so Aquaman, King of Atlantis, it looks good. I can't wait to watch it.
Same.
And then we got our first official trailer for Ron's Gone Wrong, because at first we only had the teaser, and then that was released during Annecy, and now since we are a month away, we got a full trailer. And it is really unfortunate that this is coming out after the Mitchells versus the Machines.
It is. You know you're going to get the comparisons.
Yeah, and it's understandable. This one looks to be a little more small scale and fairly cynical with its humor. Like there's a few dark jokes with the with the characters, and it looks fun. I'm sorry that it has to be in theaters, but I understand, since I'm sure Disney does not want another lawsuit on their hands.
There's another reason why this is a theater exclusive. I can't remember exactly when they set this deal up, but years before Disney acquired 20th Century Fox, they had a deal with HBO that, like, for the first, couple months of its home video release, that these movies would be like, they would have like an exclusive deal with HBO that they would be on the service for however many months. And I think that deal extends to like at least 2022. So that's the reason why these movies have been theater exclusive.
Right, that makes sense. Though I just hope it does well enough. I mean, yes, Shang-Chi, um, it like is like that's good that it's doing well in theaters. That's healthy. It's just, it's an outlier. It's a Marvel film, but I just I want more films to keep doing good, like doing well and such. So, but it looks good. I think the visual look for Ron's Gone Wrong looks good. I think the 2D designs, or like the obvious 2D inspired designs, look great in CGI. And it doesn't look like other CGI films out right now, which I'm always down for a film that has something a little more visually distinct.
Same. This is the first film from a new animation studio called Locksmith Animation, and so far this is the only film that they have set up at Disney. After this, they have like a 3-picture deal with Warner Animation, but still, for their first feature, and they already have like a their own distinct flavor. That's a good sign.
Yeah, it has some of that British wit that I like to see, and we'll just have to see how it goes. And then we have Wolf Boy and the Everything Factory, which, like, yes, it's another kid show going to Apple Plus, but it's finally something that I feel like Apple Plus has been missing. They've been missing something that's in between the age gap of like they got the preschool set, and then they have like their older kids film with
Wolfwalkers.
With Wolfwalkers, and they just need something in between. Like, animation's a medium, not a genre, so you can hit a wider margin of like viewers if you just give a show or film to specific groups of people and such. So it looks good. I hope it does well.
By the way, this is executive produced by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and I think he already has a show on there.
I think he does. I'm not fully on board with what's on Apple Plus as a service. I just know like some of the stuff like Ted Lasso and whatnot, and Wolfwalkers obviously, and then of course the Skydance animation films that Paramount sold to them.
Right.
We'll have to see how those turn out. I wish we could say that was like it for all the trailers and such, but I forgot we missed a few, because we also have the Croods Family Tree hitting Peacock and Hulu, which is of course continuing off of Croods: A New Age, and it looks like your typical CGI DreamWorks TV show. Like, it doesn't look as polished, and it looks a little stiff and clunky, but a cool thing about it is that Kelly Marie Tran is the one returning voice actor from the cast from the film, while everyone else is getting replaced. So you got Kelly Marie Tran, Kif Vanderheuvel, Ali Dixon, AJ Locascio, Artemis Pevdani, Darren Brooks, Matthew Watterson, and Amy Rosoff.
It's a pretty solid cast.
Yeah. And no, it will probably just be more typical DreamWorks shows based off of movie series. We'll just have to see. And then we got a trailer for Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales, which is just basically one of the voice actors that's coming back
Kelly Tran.
No, is Dana Snyder.
I told you he's about to steal 2021 away from everyone.
Yeah, so Poe, voiced by Jake Green in this, and BB-8 must make an emergency landing on the volcanic planet Mustafar, where they meet the greedy and conniving Grabala the Hutt, who has purchased Darth Vader's castle and is renovating it into the galaxy's first all-inclusive Sith-inspired luxury hotel. While waiting for his X-Wing to be repaired, Poe, BB-8, Grabala, and the Hutt's plucky mechanic Dean voiced by Rafael Alejandro, venture deep into the mysterious castle of Vader's loyal servant, Vani, voiced by Tony Hale. Along the way, Vani shares 3 creepy stories linked to ancient artifacts and iconic villains from across all eras of Star Wars. The Lost Boy, the story of how a young Ben Solo first meets Ren. The Dueling Monstrosities, which imagines how Darth Maul and General Grievous were reborn. And The Wookiee's Paw, which gives a look at what might have happened if all of Luke Skywalker's greatest wishes were immediately granted. The special is sure to leave fans with spine-tingling chills and goose bricks. I was like, goose brick? What's goose bricks? Oh, goosebumps.
Yeah, Lego stuff.
Yeah. As Vani spins his tales and lures our heroes deeper into the shadowy underbelly of the castle, a sinister plan emerges. With the help of Dean, Poe, and BB-8, we'll have to face their fears, stop an ancient evil from rising, and escape to make it back to their friends. It's Lego Star Wars. I thought the last time we talked about a Lego Star Wars property, it was the Christmas special, and that was a lot of fun to watch. And this one looks like it'll be fun. The Lego series has a lot more wit to its dialogue than people give it credit for.
Yeah.
And I think that's like really cool because this could have easily just been Legos, whatever. But then someone's like, let's actually have some fun.
And you know what? I've been wanting like Star Wars to do, horror-esque stuff for a while. And how funny is it that it's Lego that gets there first?
Yeah. And then we also got a new trailer for The Addams Family 2, which will be hitting theaters and on demand October 1st. It basically was the same as the first trailer, like very little new details about it. I mean, it was fine, but there wasn't much else I could add on to it that I didn't already say when we first talked about the first trailer. It only looks slightly better than the first one. And it doesn't seem like there's too much of a plot in this film. And I'm still kind of wondering who Bill Hader plays in this movie. And then, of course, they end with the same Cousin It joke and such. I mean, there's just not much to it. But that is it for the trailers. And now we will talk about one discussion topic, because I know we've slowed down on talking about news, but that's mostly because there never seems to be enough to warrant like its own news-centric episode.
But this topic that we're discussing is big enough that it does require some discussion.
Right. So on top of the news that there's going to be a Rats of Nim animated drama adaptation for Fox. Fox has recently announced that they are going to commit to diversifying their shows, which means that they're not just going to have family comedies. Well, I say family comedies, like quote unquote, because they're adult comedies that revolve around suburban life and families and what have you.
Yeah, they're literally family sitcoms.
Yeah. So, and they're going to say, like, we're going to make romances, dramas, action, thrillers. And all I really have to say about that is I hope they commit to it. I don't want them to pull away from the commitment because one of their new adventures into non-comedy animation doesn't work out. Fox has kind of a weird history with how they handle different properties and such, even among their comedies and such. Like Alan Gregory was basically canceled before it was aired because they only got 7 episodes instead of like the 12 or 13 or 24 episode count. So it's like I want to see them commit to it. If they say they're going to do it, then they need to actually do it.
I think the best case scenario is, say this Rats of Nim series is the first one to come out from this new regime, and it's amazing, that will embolden them to actually stick to their guns and give us more of a variety on the network. The worst case scenario is, regardless of quality, they pull the same stunt that they did for Firefly and basically self-sabotage themselves. I hope that doesn't happen. I'm rooting for this show specifically, but also I am begging studios and networks like Fox to actually commit to diversifying their programming slate, because diversity in every sense of the word is important for the advancement of telling new stories, then passing them down to the next generation.
Right. Representation matters. And that means you have to actually represent. Don't just hand wave it or be like, oh, we did this small thing. That's not enough anymore. I just want them to do it. Like, just do it. Give me an action show, give me a horror show or something, give me a thriller. I want to see what an adult thriller would look like. That's all we're asking. Because it seems like the animation industry get corralled into one type of story that they can tell, and that's like, people are asking for more. That's all. So let's move on to the first animation review for tonight, which we talk about the new Spark short, one of two. The next one, the other one is coming out next week of the time we are recording this. But tonight we are talking about 20 something, directed by Afton Corbin. And I just love these Spark shorts. I love that they are they're all very distinct stories. Like, you can't say like, oh, this one's similar to this one in terms of tone and execution. They all have a different story to tell. They have different voices behind them. And so this one's about, so here's the synopsis for 20 something. Adulting can be hard. Some days you're nailing it, while other days you're just a stack of kids hiding in a trench coat, hoping no one notices. Gia finds herself in the exact scenario the night of her 21st birthday. This is a story about the insecurities of adulting and how we're all just faking it till we make it. I like this one.
I love this. The visual metaphor is a little bit on the nose.
Subtlety's dead in this in this day and age, so you might as well be as literal as possible.
It's true.
No, it's like, as much as I love subtlety and storytelling and subtext and whatnot, I think we're getting to a point where it's just like, oh, people aren't going to notice the subtext, so you better make it context. It's like that meme that goes around sometimes saying like, I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards. And yeah, it's a very relatable topic, because being an adult is very tricky and challenging. It's never easy. And sometimes you will have a day or a week or so where you just feel like you're falling apart until you step back and look at the big picture.
Mm-hmm.
To see, like, you know what, you're doing better than you think you are and such. Though I think the kids in a trench coat thing was very creative. I loved the different age sets. You got 10, 16, and 1, and how they would all take over for different purposes. It's really sweet. The short is not 10 minutes. It's like about 6 minutes. The rest are, credits.
Yeah.
But they do have a fun behind the scenes making of video in the extras. So I recommend looking at that. And I love the 2D animation. The designs are very charming and appealing. And I know it's doing the Kid Cosmic approach to.
I was just gonna say, like, the designs look very, very similar,
and there's really not much to talk about. I think the thing to remember is that Pixar doesn't need to constantly be the philosophical studio that a lot of people seem to want it to be. Like, there's a reason why Soul was followed up by Luca, and then we're going to Turning Red, and then we're back to the epic Lightyear. So, and I think that's the appeal of these Spark shorts. They range in different like tones and like what's the stake of each short. I think this is why I like the Spark shorts more than the Short Circuits shorts. Even though it's weird, it's just like I like this one Disney property more than the other. I think the Pixar shorts are able to experiment more, and I don't know if that's just because of they are a little more picky with who gets to make one, but I'm not sure.
Honestly, I think both have the same level of experimentation. I think the difference though, and maybe it's just a little bit of recency bias because this one had a little bit more of a narrative. But I think the Spark shorts, they kind of have their cake and eat it too, in that, stylistically they may be experimenting, but narratively it's a little bit more clear. I don't know. I'd have to go back and go back and revisit some of the older Spark shorts to see, how true that statement actually is.
Yeah, I think I'd have to go back through the Spark shorts as well.
Generally speaking, I just love how both of these series exist at their respective studios, because this is how they're inviting new filmmakers to like develop their voices, and B, this is just kind of fun for as a consumer to get a taste of like different styles.
Mm-hmm. It's good for the artists. It's good for the studios to keep expanding their talent, and hopefully we get to see more from Afton, because I would love to see what else she would come up with. Even if it's just like a series of shorts or maybe her own movie, that would be a lot of fun. Let's talk about Rick and Morty season 5. The not the most loved season of the show's run, to put it lightly.
I think this is the season, more than the previous ones, where I've had very complicated feelings.
Mine are not complicated.
Okay, I'll say this just for my opening thoughts. Generally speaking, I think every season of Rick and Morty has been good as like a solid base. The problem is the first 2 seasons, and in my opinion, season 3, have been great. Season 4 was like, well, the way season 3 ended, we're kind of in a weird place right now, both creatively and where the story kind of left off. And like between season 4 and season 5, you can kind of feel it in the writing that Dan, Justin, and the entire writing staff kind of feels like they're kind of cracking under the pressure, because season 3 was when the show peaked in popularity. So, on the one hand, I kind of feel bad for them, because there's always the pressure of trying to top some of the show's like best episodes of all time. But like they're also in this weird position where sometimes it feels like they don't know whether or not they want to have like a full serialized narrative going through each episode, or they just want to be like self-contained wacky adventures. I'm not necessarily saying you have to pick one or the other. Some of the best shows from like the early 2000s like found that balance, and were very successful. The problem is I don't know if this show can sustain the same energy it had in the past, for another 50 episodes, according to, their last renewal, which they got renewed for 70 episodes back at the start of season 3.
Yeah, that's my problem. The problem is not that, like, oh, it can't choose between being syndicated with just one-off stories or having an overarching story. It is the fact that conflict among the writers and showrunners is starting to show. A lot of these episodes were not great. And like, I think a lot of people will say that the lowest point of the show was Rick dependent spray, and which has to do with the the giant sperm monsters. Then there's just like the Gotron, Jerry Sis, Rick Vangelion. It's like, I've already seen anime parodies from like everywhere. They're not new, they're not distinct. It really had a lack of creativity to me, like, in my opinion. Because like, we've seen Voltron parodies, and not that the Voltron parody in this show didn't look good. It looked great.
It just kind of feels been there, done that.
Yeah, or the ones where it's the one where they're constantly getting killed by assassins, and then you find out like, oh, they're the decoys. Oh, they're the decoys. Oh, they're the decoys. It got to be a bit much, because I think that was like, I could be wrong and say that the show is making fun of the fact that people like me have criticized the show, saying like, there are literally no stakes, because all that Rick has to do is, once everything goes to garbage in one dimension, they just hop to another dimension, and we'll talk about that soon, and nothing ever has to change. And it seems like the show doesn't want the characters to change, because if they do change, that means that they're nearing something, like nearing the end. Not to say like they want to keep the show going. It's pretty clear that the show is having trouble with constantly moving forward. I think the biggest sign was, I loved the Mind anime short that came out for this season.
The anime short was great.
It was a little much. I thought it tried to do too much, but I liked that more than really anything else in this overall season. But it did pick back up, because I liked the episode where Rick goes to revive Birdman. I did love the whole introduction of Mr. Nimbus. I thought that was kind of funny. Just be like, he's my longtime enemy, even though this is like the first time we've seen him. Or at least from what I remember, this is the first time we've seen him, and that's the joke. Kudos to Dan Harmon. He did a great job with that character.
He did.
And then like the turkey episode was amusing, and it, like, there are still great spots. It's just the fact that they can't afford to be in this purgatory again with this show. Like, after this season, they really need to know what they want to do.
I think the good news is, where we end off at the end of this season, it's a great opportunity for the show to, for lack of a better term, go back to basics. So, spoilers for the finale. What happens is Evil Morty escapes. Here's kind of the plot for that. So at the end of episode 9, Rick for a little bit has replaced Morty with 2 crows, and they go off on like, cliche anime adventures.
I did not like that first part of the episode, to be honest. I know everyone loved it, but I wasn't there for it.
After that opening, he and Morty are reunited, and they go to the Citadel, but are accosted by Rick agents who take them to see President Morty. There, President Morty reveals he's Evil Morty, and that he used brain scans taken from Rick to create a path outside the central finite curve, a walled-off portion of the multiverse where Rick is the smartest man alive and restricts the ones where he is not. So in this episode, we get Rick's backstory, which we kind of saw already in the first episode of season 3, but back then we were kind of led to believe that was all fake. But as it turns out, that's apparently his actual backstory, which I thought was interesting.
That was interesting. I was like, okay, so now it's official. This is canon.
And where the season ends, Evil Morty escapes, goes like to the other side of the finite curve, and all of Rick's portals have been corrupted. So there's basically a new status quo moving forward, where Rick is pretty much depowered. He can't teleport anywhere. So he and Morty are kind of left to their own devices. This is going to be interesting. I hope the writers take this opportunity to really figure out two things. One, what exactly do they want this show to be? What exactly do they want this show's legacy to become? And two, who is Rick without his portals?
Yeah, no, it's going to be fascinating to watch because, yeah, during the episode, the portals were either killing off Rick's, which, you know, they were set to do that thing from a few seasons back where Rick would go in and then get mutilated. And then with these new portals, they were basically transported to a mulch machine. And it was kind of wild to watch all that unfold. Very gruesome. Yeah. I am curious to see where they go with this because I do not want them to hand wave something like this away because that would absolutely kill any steam that the show will have had for it. I mean, really, that's what I want to see. I want to see them either commit to, I guess I want them to do a story. Like, I want them to start fully fleshing out the characters instead of feeling like, oh, we're afraid to flesh them out because then that means we can't take it back and we can't do like what It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia does and just make fun of the fact that sitcoms don't change the status quo, because now the status quo has been moved.
I can trust the writers just enough that while they can still do those like wacky standalone adventures, they're not just going to hand wave all the development that we've seen so far. I could be wrong, and if, let's say, Dan Harmon is less involved in the day-to-day production, you know, for the next couple years, it's possible that could sink the quality of the show, but who knows?
Well, it's going to be interesting because Roiland and Dan Harmon are, like, at the same time, two new shows in productions. One is going to be at Fox, one is going to be on Hulu. The, you know, Koala Man is happening for Hulu with Justin Roiland. And then, unfortunately, the cool new Dan Harmon animated show is jumping on that NFT train. Oh, that's disappointing. I was thinking that wasn't the case because I thought like Crapopolis was going to be like its own distinct show, but obviously it's not. I mean, it is, but it's going to be an NFT thing. So it's like, oh, that's disappointing to hear. But we'll have to see. I mean, like there were things I did like about this season. Like all like some of the story beats, and I like that Morty is like slowly starting to again kind of stand up to Rick because Rick is abusive, and I like that they have a better understanding of one another now by the end of it. But we'll have to see how if they commit to that. I don't know. Like I said, it's the thing with sitcoms or comedies and such. There's this like moment in time where it's like you can not return after you do this one story decision. So we'll have to see.
Yeah. One thing I've been kind of half jokingly, but half also kind of serious theorizing is that season 5 is essentially Evil Morty's origin story. And to some extent, I was half right because as revealed in the finale, Evil Morty isn't necessarily evil. He's just kind of Rick's shenanigans. But like throughout this season, you see Morty kind of taking on more of Rick's influences, like very clearly rubbing off on Morty. Starting in like a Rick Convenient Mork, like Rick is barely involved in Morty's storyline. That's pretty much Morty like being like the violent one, fighting for this girl, like this Captain Planet parody that he's in love with, only to find out that she's a monster.
Yeah. Well, I think what's going on is that Morty has gone to the point where he's having to start cleaning up after Rick. He's really tired of it. Well, Rick is just constantly thinking he's the king of all men and of the universe, so he can do whatever he wants with no repercussions. But those repercussions are coming to him sooner than he thinks. And I think that's why the last episode was really good. It's like Rick finally suffers some consequences. So, in general, if we were like ranking returning shows for this year, I think I would give, like, I wouldn't put it in my bottom 5. I'd probably put it somewhere in the lower end of the middle.
I think that's fair.
Because even the highs do not overtake or clean up the lows. So I did like the guest list this season. Like I said, Dan Harmon, Jim Gaffigan, Allison Brie, Steve Buscemi, Jennifer Coolidge, Fred Stoller, Christina Ricci, Darren Criss, Timothy Oliphant, and Tom Kenny, of course. And then we get a return of the president, voiced by Keith David. And Keith David's always great.
Oh, of course.
The guest list is good.
Yeah. As far as where I don't know where I would rank this, like, out of the shows that I've watched this year, but I think if I were to rank the Rick and Morty seasons, it would go 3, 2, 1, 4, or 5. I'll probably end up rewatching these, like, at some point once they're all available on HBO Max. But just off the top of my head, that's how I feel about the show so far. Like I said on Facebook a while ago, the best episodes of this season were like the premiere and the last 3. So that would be Rick Turno Friendshine of the Spotless Mort, Forgetting Sarah Rick Mortshall, and Rick Mirai Jack.
These titles, they're a little forced, but I give them kudos for trying to make them work.
Same.
Now we shall move on to the second season, well, part 1 of season 2 of the Owl House. Yeah, this was great. And maybe it's because of the side effects of whatever's going on with Disney and how they greenlight shows and how they make it all work. This one was a lot more story focused. It kept growing the characters, and it kept making the world of the Owl House engaging, while also still being very funny, very creative, and very touching. This season might have, or this part of the season 2 might have some of the most emotional moments of any show this year.
So for those who don't know, I was planning to write an editorial for season 2A, and the problem I kept running into, granted this is a good problem, is that this season is so dense, kind of gave me too much to talk about, or too much to really focus on for a single article, which is one of the reasons why I opted instead to talk about it on the podcast. The story technically isn't over, so some of the criticisms I could have may be answered in the second half of the season, or in the last 3 episodes of season 3. Save the Owl House, by the way. But let's dive into some of the highlights, because, like I said, this season was dense. And it's too soon to say whether or not this season is better than Amphibia season 2, which I think is perfect. But God, I love this show so much.
Yeah, no, it's that thing with a lot of these newer 2010 and onward cartoons where you're kind of stuck in one place for the first season until the very end. or you get to go further than you could with the previous season and such. This is what I've always read about these kind of shows, like Samurai Jack. Gendy Tartakovsky said, like, we set the groundwork with season 1, and then we just got to do what we wanted to do with season 2, and then got to experiment with season 3. And at the time when we all thought season 4 was the last one, glad it wasn't, they just did whatever they wanted. Like, they went further than I think Cartoon Network was aware, if that makes sense, you know. But here it's like we finally get to, well, one of the high points, and this isn't a spoiler because the show's been out, these 10 episodes have been out. Luz and Amity are officially a couple. Not hinted at, not like a nod and a wink. It's official. And good on Dana Terrace for whatever BS she had to go through to make this happen on TV, because, you know, as progressive as Disney wants to come off, there seems to be some pushback. But I was happy to see that they finally really just pinned the relationship. Like, yeah, it's official. No need to keep theorizing if they love one another or hint at it, you know. They brought it to the forefront.
And my favorite thing about it is how it comes together, because I've made it no secret that Knock Knock Knocking on Hootie's Door is my favorite episode of the season. And I think it might be one of my favorites of the series in general. I think a good chunk of my editorial was going to be about this episode and why the show works as well as it does. It's the characters. The characters have been, for the most part, we'll get into criticisms I have later, but for now, it's the characters that drive the story in this series. And Knock Knock Knocking on Hootie's Door is the perfect example of like how great these characters are developed. The structure of this episode is similar to an episode from season 1 called Once Upon a Swap. It's a little bit of an anthology-esque episode where it's divided into 3 acts. The first act is with King going through demon puberty, and Hootie gets to teach him all about the 3 different demon types.
Oh, that part was really funny when he tries to speak the language of one of the demon types, and then Hootie just immediately takes offense to it. It's like, don't you talk about my mother that way! That part was hilarious. Well, that overall episode was funny, and it kind of came off like, I'm not going to say they heard our podcasts and took the challenge, but they technically made an episode where Hootie was the main character.
Hootie is the best character.
Well, first of all, it was very funny to see, like, oh, Hootie's going to find a way to be portable. And then it's just like the head with guts hanging out. And then he turned into like this cute little cuckoo clock. I mean, granted, the organs and such, whereas
we're still, yeah.
But it was fun to see that and such. And yeah, it was nice to finally see some development for King, because as much as I liked the comedic offerings of King, it was like I was getting to that point where I wanted to see more from, like, what is his origin? What is he? And they did explore it a little more in this season, or at least this part of the season. And it was really touching. They didn't play it off like as a joke, like that he was the quote unquote Demon King or something like that. It was just nice that they treat the comedy characters with as much substance as the main characters and or like the more serious characters. And I thought that was really cool and very admirable, because it could have just been easy to pull a 80s or 90s era cartoon series and just keep that character the comedic relief or the cutesy element. But it was touching to finally see like the origin for King. And another thing I loved was the little decision of how they handled Augustus or Gus, because they aged him up because, you know, the voice actor got older. But instead of replacing him, they just aged the character up a little.
They called it witch puberty in universe.
And I just thought that was really nice because with a lot of animation and such, once the kid actors grow out of that sound, like the sound in their voice, you of course want to be like, okay, we got to get a replacement. Their voice is cracking. They're turning it. Puberty's hitting them. We can't keep going on. And I mean, that's kind of the problem with syndication and the old ways of making a TV show. So it was nice to see them just not give up on Isaac Ryan Brown, and they just keep him on for the show. I just thought that was really cool.
He sneaks in some of the best lines of dialogue. Like there's this one exchange in Escaping Expulsion where Luce, Gus, and Willow are expelled from Hexside because Amity's parents are, you know, the worst people ever. And they're trying to get rid of any distractions so Amity can get her grades up. And when Luce tries to make a deal with them, Gus is like, we're gonna figure this ourselves or die trying. And then Willow's like, nobody's dying, not with that attitude.
I mean, that was one of the few downsides, is that Willow took the back seat for a lot of this part of the season, which was a little disappointing because I liked Willow. Like, I like all these characters. I think they were all very much like, it's one of the few shows where I'm like, I want to see all the characters instead of just like, you know, it hasn't run into the Steven Universe problem when they decide to focus on a character that nobody likes.
Yeah, that's another strength to this series, is that for the most part, I can't think of like a single character in the show that people generally dislike for reasons outside of the narrative. Take Basha, for instance. She's kind of the stereotypical like bully jock character, but like she doesn't overstay her welcome. Like, she has somewhat of a soft side. Even in the episode Hunting Palisman, you know, she's kind of being her own like kind of pompous, self-absorbed self. Like, I don't want to hand me down Palisman. And then she meets the one that she's assigned, like, oh, okay, yeah, these are pretty cool. Even the worst characters do have their redeeming qualities.
Yeah, and another little story progression that I like is when we finally meet Amity's parents, Odalia Blight, voiced by Rachel McFarland, and Alador Blight, voiced by Jem Peary. It was nice that they took the like, why are they terrible parents, in a different direction, because I remember from season 1 they kind of set him up to be like what's her name, Pacifica from Gravity Falls. Like, her parents, they treated Amity's parents like Pacifica's parents from Gravity Falls, where they were just kind of rich snobs being like, oh, these people don't have strong magic. But now there's like more of a capitalistic lean on them, and the mother is definitely shown to be more of the much more aggressively toxic one of the two, while Alador, while he doesn't seem as bad, there's still something about him. Like, you can't quite put your finger on it, but he's aloof, and he just lets it's like, it doesn't cross their minds that like, oh, we are being terrible, abusive parents to Amity. We're okay with that.
Dana described Alador as interesting, which is, you know, it makes me a little bit nervous for what he has in store for the future. But at least out of the two parents, he seems like the most reasonable.
Well, for now, we'll see. Like,
Yeah, for now.
I mean, that's kind of the thing. The ones that are quiet are usually the most dangerous. Like, because yes, it's easy to see like Odalia as like the worst of the two. She's so outwardly terrible, but we don't know what Alador can do. So that's something to keep in mind as we go into 2B whenever that happens.
Now going back to knock 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 on Hooty's door, the other part 2 of that episode focuses a lot on Ida and her continued development dealing with the owl curse. And I think this might be one of the strongest elements of this season and the series in general, because I don't know if you've noticed this, but the adult mentor character in a lot of these shows oftentimes don't really get like their own storyline. They're either just the comic relief or their existence is just to act as the mentor to the main protagonist. But in this show, Ida gets plenty of her own story. And I think this is also one of the best sort of like allegories for mental illness too. We see this a lot in episode 4, Keeping Up Appearances, where we meet Ida and Lilith's mother, Gwendolyn.
Yes, and the unfortunateness of like she's trying to be helpful, but then is falling for scam artists. That was unfortunate to see. But thankfully to what is probably one of the best story-centric episodes, the one that you like, Ida basically comes to terms with the curse, with saying like, hey, listen, you and I aren't going to get along, but we need to get along. What's the deal that we can make that we can coexist? Since, she can't keep suppressing the curse because the curse is growing stronger than those potions that she takes are going to be able to handle. And it's just nice to see all the characters get more development. And of course, we get to see Ida's possible, like, past lover.
In this flashback,
Ida's Requiem.
In Ida's Requiem, we're introduced to a new character named Rain Whispers. And yes, they are non-binary, and they are awesome.
Yeah, Rain was a great character. I loved them. And of course, I think my favorite scene, because I love the music that was played in this episode, was them performing some kind of music spell to take down 2 of the what are they described as? The heads of the different guilds.
Yeah, we got Darius, who's the head of the Abomination Coven.
Yeah, the Coven. I'm sorry, not guilds. I'm getting my fantasy stuff mixed up.
Eberwolf was the head of the Beast Coven.
Yeah, and of course, people have made loops of that entire song that Rain and Ida play together. But yeah, I think Rain might be my favorite character because their dialogue was probably the most something I think the characters in the show needed to hear and what viewers needed to hear and such. And I hope Rain doesn't get killed or something like that in the second season because Rain is just great.
Yeah.
But we are missing one character that the fan base has swooned over.
Oh,
let's talk about Golden Guard, voiced by the ever incredible Zeno Robinson.
I love this character so much. It would be super easy to compare him to Zuko, and in the episode Eclipse Lake, there were far too many comparisons. Like the scenes he has with Amity they rub far too close to scenes between Zuko and Katara from Avatar: The Last Airbender. And yes, that is because Amity and Katara share the same voice actor, Mae Whitman. But I love how pathetic Hunter turns out to be.
It's interesting to see him because at first he was set up to be like the reasons why Luz and Ito's plans were going to fail every time, because he's an extremely powerful wizard, or as far as we've seen, he's very powerful, very talented, very witty. But then, of course, the show being the show, and because the show is great, Hunter is fleshed out more. And I was not expecting this, but we finally got to see what Bellows looks like under the mask.
Yeah, it's funny because when we see that face reveal, the way it's framed in the episode, it's very nonchalant. Like, it's not even a big reveal. It's just, oh, this is me without the mask.
It was just kind of normal. It was very nonchalant.
Yeah.
Because I think we were all expecting like some kind of zombie or just like...
Exactly.
But instead, he's very, well, you can't say human because he's not a human.
Or is he?
Yeah, I know there's that mystery of like who originated the magical portal thing that Luz and Ida used. And I'm sure they're kind of building up that Bellows is that same person. And Matthew Rice is great as Bellows. I thought he's made Bellows more interesting, and maybe that's also because of the writing, because Bellows at the end of episode 1 was very much just like a very sinister, evil sorcerer or witch. I have to remember that they don't gender like witch and wizards here. It's mostly just witch.
Yeah, I think that's kind of cool that witch has become a gender neutral term in this universe.
Well, it's like for a while that was always a thing, or they try to justify it. You're saying like, well, in like D&D or whatever, a witch would learn this kind of magic, a wizard would learn this or whatever. And it's just like, but aren't they just the same thing? So it's just like, let's not gender it and such. I'm a little sad that we didn't get to see more of Lilith in this season, because I like her, and I like Cissy Jones who plays her, and I'm wondering what's going to happen with her, because she leaves like early on in this first part of the season. Like, she's going to connect back with her family and such.
I think we're going to see more of her in the second half, but there's something we can't ignore. Speaking of Lilith, the blossoming friendship between Lilith and Hootie is probably one of the biggest surprises of this season. They've had interactions mostly antagonistic in season 1, but in season 2, did anyone have on their bingo cards that these two would become best friends?
I had a sneaking suspicion that could have happened. They sometimes like to do this with certain shows where they put the sort of sinister antagonistic individual with the comic relief. It's not like this is like the first time I've seen this. But I was surprised with how fast it happened, and then just how enjoyable it was, because sometimes it's a little contrived. But I liked their dynamics, and I still haven't found like a character in this show that's just like, oh, this character is grating. Hootie is constantly on the edge of doing that, but then they just use him just enough, and Hootie has usually the best lines of the show.
Yeah, I think a lot of that can be chalked up to Alex Hirsch, who voices both King and Hootie. I think his comedic timing is just so... He just makes it seem so easy.
Unfortunately, I almost wanted to strangle Hootie because of what happens at the end of Knock Knock Knocking on Hootie's Door.
Oh, yeah.
Just because it's like, oh, he's finally learning to kind of focus a little. And then we see who is possibly King's dad say like, hey, can you give this letter to King? And then he accidentally eats it and then forgets that he has eaten the letter.
Oh. Don't worry. If it's any consolation, I don't think he digested the letter the same way that he didn't digest the Echo Mouse. So I think we'll be okay.
It was just kind of like, it was funny, but it was also frustrating because it's like, Hootie, gosh darn it. But no, of course, if we've seen from previous episodes where we've seen what Hootie's is like, here are your books. It just pukes them out. I thought episode 10 was really good. We see, because I think it was like at the beginning of this season, or no, it was a little bit into season, like near the end of season 1, that Luz's mom, she's talking with someone and we don't know what exactly. Like at first it was just like, oh, okay, so maybe she is getting Luz's text messages from the fantasy world. Don't ask how that works. And then it's like they kind of hint at something else is up. And then we finally get the reveal in episode 10 with yesterday's lie that a fake Luz is there in the human world, who's actually a, what do they call it, a doppelganger? No, a basilisk.
Yep.
I thought that was great because really it took Luz out of the episode for the most part. It took the main characters out to focus on V, the basilisk, and to really just give her development and then just like exactly what's going on and such. Like, how did this basilisk get here and why is she here? I mean, like, what did you think?
There are two things I love about this episode. One, we actually get to learn a lot more about Luz's hometown. I know, like, in Hunting Palisman, Luz kind of made like, offhand comment about, am I going to be a witch in Connecticut? But then in this episode, we get to see that her hometown is a lot more, it has more of a history with magic than perhaps we were led on to believe. We learned that Ida has been there a couple times, was banned from the local coffee shop for what was it, trying to sell a live otter. And she's had run-ins with the curator at the historical center. Plus, probably one of the biggest reveals about Bravesfield is the statue of what appears to be Philip Whittabang and his brother. And there have been theories all over the place of which one of them is Bellows, which one is Hunter. Are Hunter and Bellows like distant relatives? If you search for like Bellows theories, you'll find like thousands of them. One reason I love this episode is to learn more about where Luz came from. And the other is it's sort of like a grass is greener kind of story where she gets to experience what it's like to live in Luz's shoes. By doing that, she basically gets to experience the life that she never got to have. Really, both Luz and V, they're both getting sort of a wake-up call of like seeing how the other half lives. We learn that V is obviously named after her number 5, as she's like one of a handful of basilisks who have been brought back to life by Bellows to basically act as like vacuums for stealing magic away from the people in the Boiling Isles.
Right.
And so, not wanting to be just an experiment, she escapes, finds somewhere better to live than her own captivity.
Right.
So the second she finds the opportunity, she sneaks off into the portal. And because she's a shapeshifter, she gets to blend right in, no questions asked. That's just really, really nice, because what this also does, it kind of shows the life that Luz could have had if she didn't walk through the portal.
Right. It's a Marvel what if. No. I'm glad that they kind of set in stone now that like Luz's mom knows that she's in a different world, and they both have obviously a lot of feelings about it. And Luz's mom, Camila, just being like, don't leave again. And Luz is just like, I feel more at home here than in a world where she doesn't feel welcome. Which, you can look at that in a lot of ways.
And I think one more thing I love about this episode is it really humanizes Camilla, because, the fandom being the fandom, we all kind of demonized Luz's mom in the pilot because while this was a funny gag, the camp that she was going to go to was, stay in the box or whatever. But this episode kind of makes it clear that it's not that Camilla wants to suppress Luz's creativity. She wants her to be more open to the world, make new friends, try to engage with the world around her. And ironically, these are the lessons that Luz learns in the demon realm, which, despite being like kind of what she always imagines, the typical fantasy worlds to be, when she tries to live out, as Camilla calls it, some demon fantasy, it usually blows up in her face. But when she actually goes out of her way to make new friends, which she has, find a hobby that she enjoys and can excel at, which is, her whole thing with learning witchcraft, and eventually finding love, which she does with Amity. She's matured a lot in the Boiling Isles, and that's what makes her promise so much more heartbreaking, because she wasn't running away from her mother, but at the same time, she just didn't feel like she fit in her hometown.
Yeah. No, this whole season has been really good at just everything. I personally do not have any major criticisms, or at least ones that I don't like, that I haven't already mentioned slightly, like Willow being taken out of this first half of the season for a little too long. I think that's a little disappointing. And that's really it for me. I can't really think about anything that I would say like, oh, this was the real sour note like moment of the season, or something like that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Other than I want to see more of X, I don't have any this was bad kind of criticisms. The closest I can get to maybe they should have done this differently is episode 5, through the Looking Glass, is a great episode for Gus, because he gets to go on his own little adventure with the Glandis kids. But it also has a B plot where Luz and Amity, find the journal in the library, and they also, in the process, further along their romantic development. And my one criticism of that episode is that wasn't an A and a B plot. Those were 2 A plots in the same episode. They probably could have split this episode in half so that one wouldn't overshadow the other.
Right. I did like the A2 plot with Amity and Luz, and the library keeper. Like, he's supposed to be
Malpheus.
Malpheus is supposed to, like, he looks like this monstrous individual, and then outside the library, he's just like, okay, listen, I understand what you're trying to do, while he's like clenching the area on his nose, and he's just like in irritation. He's just like, listen, I get it, but you can't really be doing that, so I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to take away your card, Amity. So I think that was Fred Tatasciore as that character.
Oh, that is glorious.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't have much else to talk about. So far, this first half of the season has been great, and I hope they continue it. I hope fans don't try to raise their expectations to an impossible degree. Keep them high, because so far this has been the best second season of something this year alone. And this is the year where we've had the Promised Neverland season 2 fiasco. You can look that up at another time to know just how bad that turned out. So, because I think people just want this to be good, and of course, kind of learning that the third season for Owl House is going to be 3 specials, because the pandemic has done a lot more damage than we thought it did.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. If you've been paying attention at all to Twitter, you'll notice that pretty much every other day, you will see something with the hashtag of either save the Owl House or more of the Owl House, or any random thing from the Owl House will be trending like at least once a week, if not more, which is wonderful because it shows that, despite low rating on TV, because nobody really watches cable anymore, the show has been performing really well on Disney Plus. For the longest time, it was in the top 20 on the trending page. So if you want to see more from the Owl House, you have to support it on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but you can't really go the route of torrenting or pirating with this kind of thing. And yes, I know Disney sucks in a lot of ways, and the fact that apparently a lot of their productions were being funded by all the income they'd make from Disneyland or Disney World is shocking, kind of telling of the state of the industry in a lot of ways. And unfortunately, apparently there's for now, there are going to be no more seasons after the 3 specials that make up season 3. But that doesn't mean that that's it. It's set in stone. It just has to be a bigger push. And it's another sign of like big companies should stop looking at cable numbers. Because a lot of people are dropping cable these days. You can't be shocked when the numbers are low.
Mm-hmm.
You have to look at the social media engagement. You have to look at the social media angle with all of this. How big is it on Disney Plus? Okay, that's a good sign. How many people are constantly talking about it online? Okay, that's a good sign. Just adapt, improve.
Fun fact, I don't know exactly what it's like for the rest of the world, but in the UK at least, Disney has basically shut down all of their cable networks. So I know there are a lot of cord cutters in the US. Something tells me that in the next couple years, we might be seeing like the end of cable as we know it. That's why almost all of the major studios have their own streaming services. And if they don't, they've got like first look deals with Netflix, Amazon, what else? Hulu. So streaming is definitely the future of entertainment. And I hope Disney is really paying attention, because specifically if we're talking about the Owl House, there are opportunities for spin-offs, whether that's like a sequel series on Disney Plus, or a series of movies, little one-off shorts. The opportunities are endless.
Yeah, no, we just hope for the best. We got to keep going because, well, what else can we say? Owl House Season 2A has been great. I hope Season 2B is also great. It should be. Like I said, once you get into like the Season 2 of things, it gets a lot smoother once the groundwork has been set up.
Exactly.
Now we must move on to From Up on Poppy Hill, directed by Goro Miyazaki and written by Hayao Miyazaki. I think this might be one of the few times you and I disagree on a film, but just only slightly. So
yeah, only slightly. So this movie is based on the 1980 manga of the same name, illustrated by Shizuru Takahashi and written by Tetsudo Sayama. And the film follows a group of Yokohama students fighting to save their school's clubhouse from the wrecking ball during preparations for the 1964 Tokyo Olympic Games. While working there, Umi and Shun gradually attract each other, but face a sudden trial. Even so, they keep going without fleeing the difficulties of reality. In my quick thoughts review, I kind of wrestled with whether or not I think this is a bad movie elevated by Hayao Miyazaki's honestly pretty good screenplay, or if it's a really good movie but weighed down by Goro's direction. I'm going to assume that other than Grave of the Fireflies, you've seen all of Studio Ghibli's films. First, I'll ask, Do you think Goro is a bad director?
No, I don't think he's a bad director. I think he has potential to be a good director. There are moments from his films that are quite good, even from something like Earwig and the Witch, which a lot of people like to say is 100% irredeemable, even though I disagree with that.
I do too. It is objectively the worst Ghibli film, but the problem is it's less him and more the source material. But we talked about that before.
Yeah, I think a problem is that you have the conflict of interest that Studio Ghibli wants Goro to be like his dad. The problem is there's only one Hayao Miyazaki. You can't just make Goro Miyazaki into Hayao Miyazaki version 2. Goro needs to find his own voice as a director, or if he wants to be a director, because I think he was somewhat forced into being a director when talks of Miyazaki retiring came about. Though I don't know when the time frame of this was, or if all of this is 100% accurate. It's the fact that something is not clicking with Goro, and I don't know if it's just him trying to be like his dad, or if the studio's trying to make him like his dad, or the fact that it seems like Goro doesn't get a whole lot of help from the veteran members of the company.
Yeah, I can kind of feel that his directorial efforts, it kind of feels like he's left high and dry. At least with this movie, Hayao is acting as like his training wheels. From what I saw, at least in The Earwig and the Witch, he was left with nothing.
Well, that's what happens when someone doesn't say, hey, this book's not finished. Let's not do this. A lot of the problems with From Up on Poppy Hill is the fact that I think there's a bit of a growing pain with, I don't know when Miyazaki wrote this script, because this film originally came out in 2011, which was like a few years after Ponyo. And then the US got this in 2013, the same year that Miyazaki put out what was his last film, The Wind Rises. So I'm just saying, like, the US got From Up on Poppy Hill years later, because this film feels like it wants to be a whisper to heart. And I know you haven't seen that movie yet, but it wants to be this personal teen drama journey of self-realization and coming of age. This is one of those films that doesn't really have any fantastical elements to the story. It's a much more grounded experience as we deal with characters who are dealing with the aftermath of not only World War II, which really just changed the country as we know it, because when you do something like drop an atom bomb, there's a change to happen. Just, war is bad. And then them having to deal with the Korean War, which is happening during the time in this movie. And there's a huge theme of forgetting the past, pushing it away to move forward, to keep moving forward, not hold on to the past. But then there's the conflict of, but we can't forget who we are because of unfortunate events in our history. We have to remember it. And it's a mix of both. We have to remember what happened so we can improve and keep moving forward in the future, so we don't make the same mistakes and such. At least that's what I got from this movie. It's done in a very creative way. I think one of the things I like about this movie is the, what is it called? The Latin Quarter.
Yep.
This has probably some of my favorite dialogue I've seen in a Ghibli film. When the two girls, Umi and Sora, go there to meet Shun. It's funny. They're like, we're looking for the philosophy club. And the other guy's like, oh yeah, it's third floor, just where all the pretentious shenanigans are or something like that. Like basically calling them windbags. And then like not the philosophy, the newspaper.
I think they said it's like down the hall from the archaeology club.
Yeah, or they're both in the same room. And you get by the philosophy club, which, big shock, the student there, the philosophy club president, is voiced by Ron Howard in the English dub. We'll talk about this soon, but I actually like the voice cast for this movie quite a lot.
This cast is great.
But we'll talk about that in a second. And then we get to the room where the archaeology club is sharing with the literature club. I think it's a literature club. You hear in the background the archaeology students being like, how can we make archaeology cool again? We can't. It's like, ouch. Oh, that's brutal. And then it's like, it's really the ticking clock, or like one of them is the fact that they want to save this building because they want to preserve the culture and history behind it. The philosophy club shed notwithstanding. I love the implications of that. Like I said, this film can be very funny, and I think Miyazaki has a sense of humor. Like, not like, I don't know, maybe it's just because I see too many people calling him a grumpy grandpa. Like, I think there's a lot more cleverness to him than people give him credit for.
There is, and whoever they're getting to adapt his dialogue, they do a really good job of capturing very dry wit. It's great.
And then you get like the young teen romance between Umi and Shun. And I mean, yes, they do become like starstruck lovers and such, but there's definitely like a hesitant vibe coming from between the two because of Umi feeling like Shun tricked her into that photo op. And I like that it's a little more real. It feels more realistic. Like, I guess we'll deal with you. I don't like you, but maybe we can ask for your help.
And I think that's what I like about the way that Miyazaki writes romance. It's never too rose tinted. Like, these are still high school students, so they're written as such, but it's still sweet. It's still a little bit saccharine. We'll get to the rug that gets pulled from under us.
We got to talk about the second ticking time clock with this film, which is the fact that because the Latin Quarter, I feel like, should have been the whole plot of the movie.
That honestly would have been enough.
Because then we have the romance angle, like drama of Umi and Shun might be related. So at first it's like, oh, I don't want to hear this story. Please, no. Like, please, Miyazaki, do not dive into this stuff. Of course he doesn't.
Thank God.
But I think he knows. It's like, no. I don't think he would write the drama for this, or Goro would write the drama for this. So there's no way to really set it up to like word it. And it's interesting because it is like they just want to know about their past, the history. Like, was Umi's dad the father of Shun? And spoilers, you'd find out that Umi's dad adopted Shun, whose parents were unable to take care of him, and then took him to a friend be taken care of after Umi's dad's
So basically, it turns out they were essentially worried over nothing. So they're not related.
No, but the fact that this is the driving force of the movie, even though there's plenty of themes about moving forward, especially when you look at all the plots revolving around Umi's sisters and family and such. Like, there's a lot of great moments with Umi's family. I quite like them. I like Ryoko Matsuzaki, who's voiced by Jamie Lee Curtis.
Awesome casting.
Yeah, and then we got Sayori Makimura, who's voiced by Christina Hendricks, and then we got Miki Hokuto, voiced by Gillian Anderson. And then Riku Matsuzaki, voiced by Raymond Ochoa. And then we have probably the one that's super distracting, but the one that stands out the most is Sachiko Hirokoji, voiced by Aubrey Plaza. Not that she does a bad job. She's perfect for the role of Sachiko. It's Aubrey Plaza. She's very distinct with her speaking tone and such. It's very much like her Parks and Rec character.
It's fitting for the character.
Yeah. And I guess we'll talk about the cast. This is a really good cast. It's also a very sad cast. Not because like, oh, this is unfortunate casting. No, nothing like that. It's the fact that alongside Sarah Bolger, who voices Umi, Shun Kazuma is voiced by Anton Yelchin, which I forgot that he was in this movie, and that just makes me sad because he's no longer with us. And he was, I liked him.
Me too.
No, he was a great young actor. And then we have Charlie Saxton, we have Edie Meerman, of course we said Jamie Lee Curtis and Christina Hendricks and Gillian Anderson. We also got Isabel Furman. Chris Noth plays Shun's adopted dad. And then we also have Emily Osment. Oh, I think it was Nobuko who goes up with Umi to the Latin Quarter. And then we have the guy who solves everything, the last remaining member of Umi's dad's like friend group, voiced by Bruce Dern. And then we got Mr. Tokumura, the chairman, who's voiced by Beau Bridges. When was the last time you heard Beau Bridges in a movie?
It's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a minute. And then we got like Emily Bridges, Ron Howard, Jake Steinfeld, and Jeff Dunham in a small voice role as Gen Shiraki. And I like this voice cast. It's kind of like a understated voice cast for Ghibli. And I like that. It's like the Disney or Pixar approach to casting. It's just like, who can we get that would make sense no matter the role?
Was this the first movie that was not distributed in the States by Disney? I know in Japan, like this was I know Walt Disney Japan did the original release, but was this the first one that G-Kids all by themselves?
Yeah, this was like, granted, before Disney got their hands on Ghibli, a few Ghibli films got picked up, and then of course Miramax brought over Princess Mononoke. But then like after Disney was like, we're done, G-Kids was like, well, take that, thank you very much. Like kind of looking at Disney like, are you guys like, did something happen? Why are you giving up on Ghibli? And this was like the first time I remember hearing about G-Kids was through learning about From Up on Poppy Hill's release. Like I said, it's a good cast, but a good cast, some really solid writing and interesting story beats do not solve the biggest problem I've always had with this movie.
I do want to give a shout out to the composer, Satoshi Takabe, who composed a really fun, jazzy, kind of upbeat score for this movie. I really enjoyed.
Yeah, it's a very distinct tone and tune that you don't get from a lot of Ghibli films, because a lot of Ghibli films are, of course, composed by Joe Hisaishi. But this one feels different.
Remind you a little bit of like a Peanut special.
Kind of. It feels like Whisper to Heart. It feels like it has a little bit of that Earwig and the Witch kind of vibe. It's definitely like a little more, I guess, quote unquote, modern sound, but I'm not entirely sure if that's the correct way to describe it. I'm not a music person. I can't hold it in anymore. I have to talk about my least favorite part of this movie and why it's not really my favorite film. It's not in my top 10. I have to talk about the ending, because I've mentioned here before that I am not a fan of abrupt endings. This is the movie that made me discover that. It's why I don't like how a lot of films from Japan seem to end just like, okay, we're done, and that's it. And it's like, wait, no. Only because... So they saved the Latin Quarter by convincing the chairman to make the building that he wants somewhere else.
Yay.
Yeah, yay. And then right after, Shun gets a call from his dad saying like, hey, we identified that third guy in the photo. He's about to leave on another ship. You better get here soon. So Shun and Umi get on like the tugboat and head over to the ship, basically accepting that like, yeah, okay, if we are brother and sister, we still care for each other as humans and friends and such. And then we get to the ship, and then you find out that the friend, who's voiced by Bruce Dern, is like, no, here's what exactly happened, aka for the short too long didn't read crowd, you are not brother and sister. And it's like, all right, awesome. The credits start rolling, and I was left for the first time when I saw this in the theater flabbergasted by, I was like, that's it? That's the ending? No like closure for the characters, no like big speech or something about, hey, time will keep moving forward, but we'll always have memories of the past or something like that. Like anything. It's the most abrupt ending right next to Earwig and the Witch. And I know a lot of people might say The Secret World of Arrietty might have a worst ending, but at least you can excuse what happens with that ending. We'll talk about that when we get to that. But it just ends.
Yeah, so the way you described pretty much all of that, like those two big reveals, I described them as the filmmakers pulling two different rugs in opposite directions. And yeah, that is very frustrating to not have some sort of closure.
Now she raises the flags for a different reason, because she's come to terms that her dad's not coming back. But it's not an ending. It's really upsetting, because I feel like this is Goro's best movie, because it doesn't end on like once the story's getting good, or it doesn't end once
the story actually gets started.
Yeah, once the story actually gets started. It's just, it ends. I don't want to say they ran out of time, because we don't know how these productions go until they release like a whole book of like, here's what happens. And from all sides, they don't just try to tell one side of the story. I don't know. It doesn't fully ruin the movie, but it hurts a movie that's really good about like the uneasiness of like these teenagers and people in Japan feeling where do they belong in the world, like during 1963 and what have you, because this is happening during the 1964 Summer Olympics.
Yep.
And so it has this really cool angle to cover this story, and then they focus on the are they or are they not brother and sister plot, and then it ends. I don't know. I would have been fine with this being a little more low key, maybe a smaller scale romance story. It's just, I'd rather watch Whisper of the Heart if I'm going to watch a movie like this from Ghibli.
I will comment more on that later, but my general thoughts on this movie is, to me, it kind of feels like what was once going to be, an hour-long TV special was kind of like, I'm not saying this as fact or anything, just kind of my own speculation. It feels like what was once going to be, an hour or 75-minute TV special has been like blown up to feature length for like a theatrical film. In some regard, I can feel like the pacing not being 100% there. I would have preferred if like more of the focus was like, even if the entire movie was like just set in the Latin Quarter building, and all we were doing was like spending time to renovate this historical landmark, that honestly would have been engaging enough. But I really just wasn't a fan of kind of the back and forth between, are these two related? Both of those two reveals, they almost kind of cancel each other out. It kind of makes like the third act, like the film, kind of crumble. But at the same time, it doesn't take away from the good stuff. Like, these two did have a really sweet chemistry. I like their ambition and their goal of save like a piece of history that's important to them. I think the movie is messy, but not unwatchable.
At worst, it's messy. It's uneven with how it wants to tell its story or what it wants to focus on. When it's talking about the Latin Quarter, that's when it's at its best. When it tries to do a romance or try to be Whisper to Heart 2.0, it doesn't work. And I understand why people don't like this movie. I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be.
No, not at all.
I still put it in my top 10 from 2013. But that's also because 2013 was not the best year for animation. So I still recommend watching it. I still think it has a lot of great stuff, like the writing.
I agree with the answer that you told me earlier when I asked, is Goro a bad director? The answer is clearly no. He has potential. I think what he needs is a support team behind him that he can depend on. But also he needs room to grow, establish his own voice, and step out of his father's shadow.
Yeah, and I think he just needs to find writers and people who can work with him and craft something different. Because now it's like with Masaki Iwasa taking a break from Science Saru and just filmmaking in general, Science Saru is already like rounding up directors to work with, because they got Naoko Yamada, and then they got the guy who directed Sunny Boy from this season of anime, and from Shingo Natsume to work on a Tatami Galaxy sequel.
Oh,
so it's just like they need to find talent to help Goro if they want to keep Goro as a director. Or if Goro just wants to work at like in improving and doing new stuff for the Ghibli Museum, I think that's okay also. But something needs to happen, because after Miyazaki's done, that's it. But in general, that's how I feel about From Up on Poppy Hill.
I think we can both agree. If you're a Studio Ghibli completist, then yes, you're going to watch this movie. How you enjoy it, that's up to you. Right now, it's only towards the bottom of my list because so far I've only seen 10 of the 23 films in the Ghibli library.
Right.
And speaking of which, you got the wheel set up?
Okay, so here we go. Let's spin the wheel. Sorry. We're doing Whisper of the Heart.
Whoa.
Next.
Alrighty.
Kind of good timing of all things and such.
It's like we willed it into existence.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about one of the few films that Miyazaki and Takahata did not direct. This is by Yoshifumi Kondo, who was set up to be the next quote-unquote Miyazaki, but unfortunately died before he could really do anything. And it was unfortunately his death that caused Miyazaki to come back. Because I think, this was like right after Princess Mononoke, I think. And because this film is from 1995. Yeah, this lines up. And then Princess Mononoke came out and Miyazaki's like, I'm done. And then Kondo is just like, yes, I'll be happy to make more movies for you, Ghibli. And then he died, and we'll talk about that more the next time. But this is one of my favorites. This would be like my number 4 outside of my top 3. I watched this movie religiously when I was in high school. And since it has to do with high school, it kind of fits.
And it's a musical coming of age movie, so
don't expect it to be like a full-blown musical.
Right, this is Ghibli.
It has one song, and it's going to use that one song to theme everything. So until then, that's where that's it.
So for recommendations this week, I don't know if anyone is familiar with a YouTuber by the name of Toonrific Tariq. He just put out a video, basically reevaluates the Disney's One Saturday Morning series, The Weekenders, which was one of my favorites growing up. It sucks that the show is not on Disney Plus, because if it was, I would probably be watching it like all the time. This was like one of my favorites from that era. It had a great cast of characters, like a great voice cast too.
Yeah,
You had
Jason Marsden, Phil Lamar, Greg Griffin, Kat Sose, Lisa Kaplan. That's a great cast right there.
yeah.
I mean, and that's not on top. That's like on top of also having like Jeff Bennett, Cree Summers, and Tara Strong, what have you. So
One of those shows that it shaped a lot of like my sense of humor and just sort of that appreciation for slice of life comedies. It's just a really good show. And this video in particular is kind of a personal project for Tariq, because he's not just reevaluating the show, but he's reevaluating his own review that he did like 5 years ago. So yeah, this recommendation kind of kills two birds with one stone, recommending a great YouTube video and a great Disney television series.
Disney is kind of unusual with what they upload to Disney Plus, because you think stuff like The Weekenders would be up there, but we finally got like Pepper Ann.
I'm so happy that was the other one Saturday morning series that I would watch all the time. And you can kind of tell that people like Matt Braley, the creator of Amphibia, was like heavily inspired by, and I believe the same character designer who worked on Pepper Ann also did the character designs for the Cartoon Network show codenamed Kid Next Door.
Same character designer. And
Yep.
It's really obvious once you actually see a clip of Pepper Ann, because I was a Kids Next Door fan and I didn't really watch Pepper Ann. That's mostly on me. And then I was like, I look at Pepper Ann's designs and it's like,
You start to wonder, where have I seen this before?
Because there are definitely certain named like character designers that come to mind in US animation that like you can instantly tell, oh, it's that person. It's like when you look at like the Jackie Chan Adventures show from like the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
And then you watch the early 2000s version of The Batman, and it's like, oh, this is the same person who designed the characters and such. For my recommendation, I was having trouble picking something. I mean, first off, the Doug Day shorts on Disney Plus are delightful and are the last time we will hear Ed Asner. They are very charming. If you have a dog, it's delightful. They actually make those shorts work. I don't know if they're going to make more, but we'll have to see what happens. But I want to recommend The Great North. I feel like this show maybe has slipped under the radar, even though it's going to be renewed for it's going to have a new season very soon, and it got renewed for a third season also. It's by the people who made Bob's Burgers and Central Park, and it's very charming. And I'm not just saying that because Nick Offerman voices the patriarch of the family,
which is perfect casting.
But that is very much one of the reasons to watch that show, because Nick Offerman is funny. Like when he's thinking like it's the end of the world is happening, he's like, okay, everybody, we have 400 years worth of rice and 2 Calvin and Hobbes books in the bunker, so I think we'll be okay. No. So, or like when he's trying to get back into his character's trying to get back into dating, and they're just like, if you want to order extra dipping sauce for the garlic knots, you do that on your own. And he's just like, yes, I order my own dipping sauce for garlic knots. I'm not a monster. So yeah, that's what I recommend.
Nice. So next week we have 2 Netflix shows. One is a continuation of a movie that we really liked called I Love Arlo. And then we obviously need to talk about Kid Cosmic Season 2.
Yeah, we have a lot of catching up to do. So those are going to be the main ones, along with Whisper of the Heart, because we also have to find time to talk about the Witcher film, the Monster Hunter TV film, the Fire Drake the Silver Dragon. Ugh. And then also Chicago Party Aunt, which I did a editorial for.
Go check out that editorial. All right, before we head out of here, Cameron, where can everyone find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Cam's Eye View. I have my own website called camseyeview.biz where I review animated films and shows from all over the world, called The Other Side of Animation. I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/camseyeview. If you like my work, you can support me that way.
And you guys can find me on Twitter at Captain K42. You can check out all my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/Coach K42. And you can find me in all the various Facebook groups just at my name. You can follow Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. Look for us on Podchaser. Listen to all of our podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Animation. Thank you guys for joining, and we will catch you guys later. Peace out.
Bye.